Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk all about iframe ignore, because iframe ignore skills are super rare in Marvel Future Fight, and they're super powerful, mostly for PvP, but they also have some PvE value, and they are very important skills because they teach you a lot about the game. So if you know to identify iframe ignore skills in the future, you can not only identify certain opponents that you're fighting in PvP that are a bigger threat, that require different team compositions, especially if it's Alliance Conquest, and you also know how to value characters better. So if you see a character that's coming out, or if a character comes out and you notice that character has iframe ignore, you're like, oh snap, that character has iframe ignore, then you'll be able to, evaluate that character and realize their strengths and push them further. So what is iframe ignore? Well, I'm going to start off with Cyclops here, the originator, the very first character in Marvel Future Fight to have iframe ignore, if I'm remembering it correctly, on laser point strike. And it's that orange text there at the bottom, enables attacking enemies who have activated the ignore targeting effect. So that's why we call it iframe ignore. Iframe in this game is not called iframe. In this game, it's called ignore targeting. Ignore targeting is when you use a skill and the big X shows up on your character. So, pretty much every character nowadays has at least one iframe skill. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys, if we go into the preview skill for Medusa, what an iframe is. And then iframe ignore basically means that even if an enemy is iframe, even if an enemy is in an iframe, if they're iframing, you can still attack them. That's how powerful ignore iframe is. So on her fifth skill, right? Oh, actually, never mind. When she jumps, there's the iframe. Okay, the fifth skill was literally the worst one to choose. So her fourth skill is an iframe right there. That big red X, iframe. She drops down. Now it's not an iframe. All right, let's do another one here. Iframe here, and then it stops. So the first part of the skill is an iframe. The second half of the skill is not an iframe, and that's basically how it goes. None of this skill here is an iframe. This is just a regular attack. So if you don't see the big red X, it's not an iframe. If you do see the red X, then that part of the skill that has the red X is an iframe. Generally speaking, characters with more iframes are more powerful, and then conversely, characters with fewer iframes are less powerful, because iframes, if you're in iframe, 99% of the time you don't take any damage. Now, if you have an effect that's on you, like a bleed or a burn or poison or something like that, that's ticking, that will continue to tick. Being an iframe doesn't stop that damage, but being an iframe stops pretty much all other damage. It'll stop damage from attacks. It'll stop damage from things underneath you, like if there's a poison thing under you and it hasn't poisoned you yet. If you iframe, it's not going to do anything. If you're in Shadowland and the enemy drops like the mines, like the Rocket Raccoon mines that do all defense down, if you use an iframe skill, it'll just erase the mines as you walk over them. And then also, if a character's attacking you and you use an iframe skill, you're not going to take any damage. You're also not going to take any damage if you use an iframe skill from reflect. So normally, if you do a regular skill and the character has a reflect ability up, or Silver Surfer, you'll take damage as they take damage. If you do an iframe skill, you will do damage, but you won't take the damage in return. So iframes are super, super powerful. Now, iframe ignore, like I said, it just ignores the iframe. So the very easiest way to test iframe ignore is to just go into World Boss, and I'm going to go ahead on the Thanos stage because it's pretty easy to trigger the sort of the middle of the match. And I'm going to go ahead and show you, I'm actually going to show you 3 different characters that have iframe ignore. So we're going to have to be pretty quick about this. Where is she? Okay, she's right there. All right, so we're going to use 3 characters here. We're going to use Cyclops, we're going to use Captain Marvel with the new uniform, and we're going to use Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, listen, you've got a Negasonic Teenage Forehead, Alex, but she doesn't have iframe ignore. She doesn't. She has a different ability that's sort of like iframe ignore, but not the same. So check this out. We're going to go in here. We're going to do some damage. We're going to trigger the second part of this fight where he sort of... It's very briefly the second part of this fight here. There's my iframe skill. Ooh. Okay, we got guard broken. Nice. Wow, your damage is so bad, my dude. Man, old Cyclops, even tier 3, is just so bad. Even CTP of Raged out. He is rough, man. You're so bad. Why did I choose? Okay, there. He's in an Okay, so here we go. He's going to come out of iframe, and then he's going to go back into iframe. When he goes back into iframe, I'm going to show you how Cyclops' iframe ignore skill works. So here we go. He's going to go into iframe. I can't hit him. Oh, third skill. I did hit him. Now we're going to switch to Captain Marvel. I can't switch to Captain Marvel. All right, we're going to try this again. Dang it. All right, so that was Cyclops' iframe ignore skill, but I'll show you a much more popular iframe ignore skill. I'm going to show you an iframe ignore skill that you're very, very familiar with. Captain Marvel with either the Endgame or the MCU uniform, as long as it's something from 2019. It's not the Secret Wars, and it's not the Miss Marvel one. That one will ignore iframe on the 4th skill. So we're going to do everything except 4 here. He's going to go into iframe, and I can't hit him with... Well, I got frozen. I can't hit him with my 1, but I can hit him with my 4. So there, even though he was an iframe, I hit him with my 4th skill. So there's actually quite a few characters that have iframe ignore. I just want to show you one more thing here before we go back and talk about the rest of the characters that have iframe ignore. And this is called no target required. This is a different kind of skill. This is not iframe ignore, but it's sort of like iframe ignore because you don't require a target to cast the skill. So 99% of skills, or 99.5% of skills require a target. That means if you don't have a target because your target is too far away, because the target doesn't exist, the target's dead, or because the target is in iframe, when you press the skill, nothing happens. Okay, the last 0.5, the last half a percentage of skills are either iframe ignore, like Cyclops' 3rd skill and Captain Marvel's 4th skill, or it's a skill that does not require a target, and that is what Negasonic's 3rd skill is. And actually, every single 3rd skill that doesn't require, every single skill that doesn't require a target is a 3rd skill. It's pretty funny. So basically what that means is when you press the skill, the game doesn't check for a target. The game is just like, you want to press the skill? Okay, here you go, press the skill. Most of the time, these skills that don't require a target, they don't have any damage. They're just buff effects. And that's why they don't require a target. But here we go. I'm going to show you here. He's going to go into iframe, and Negasonic can do her 3rd skill right there. And her 3rd skill will give her an accumulation buff, and it will also give her an all defense buff, and it will also give her a... some other kind of buff. I think it's a guard hit that she has there. So that is a different kind of skill right there. Guard hit, accumulation. It's just guard hit and accumulation. There's no all defense or super armor. Yeah, it's just guard hit and accumulation. So yeah, this is called a buff skill that does not require a target. We'll talk about those a little bit later. We'll come back to those, but I just wanted to showcase that while I was there on the stage rather than going back and forth. So Cyclops was the very first character to get iframe ignore, and it's a really good skill. Unfortunately, Cyclops was a really bad character, so it just didn't matter. Cyclops kept his iframe ignore for this uniform and this uniform, and then sadly, when he got this uniform, he lost his iframe ignore. Honestly, he really could have and should have kept his iframe ignore. It's really not that overpowered. It would not have made him, it would have made him usable for PvP. It wouldn't have made him busted for PvP. It wouldn't have made him a god for PvP. He would have still lost to Captain Marvels and Silver Surfers, and then other characters that came out more recently. So that is sort of the sad case of Cyclops. Probably most players nowadays will never experience Cyclops with the iframe ignore, but he did have it. The other 2 characters that are most notable for iframe ignore are both of the Novas. Little Nova has it on Rocket Blast, and you can see the text there, and then Big Nova has it on Chain Explosion Smash, the orange targeting, the orange text there. So those characters have that there. Captain Marvel, of course, has it on her 4th skill, and you can see all this in game, so it's helpful to understand. Winter Soldier has it on his 4th skill as well. Now, this one is not orange text for some reason. It says enables attacking enemies who have activated the ignore targeting effect. This is a little bit different because it's a buff. So this one's a little bit better because rather than it being tied to a skill, it's tied to a buff on a skill, which means that you can press 4 during their iframe. He will use the sharpshooter effect to shoot them, and you'll have iframe ignore even if you use other skills. So it's actually quite powerful in the sense that you can use it to give iframe ignore to his other skills. Hopefully he'll keep that buff because I think it's actually really cool. Right now he's kind of a lackluster character. He's not really used for much PvP, and iframe ignore doesn't have a lot of value outside of PvP. It's mostly PvP, but it can help sometimes in PvE to push the boss a little bit further, do a little bit more chip damage, or dodge the boss when they're iframing to hurt you or something like that, if your ignore iframe is an iframe skill. That's something you need to pay attention to because, for example, Cyclops' 3rd skill is not an iframe. He iframe ignores, but he's not in iframe, so you can still hurt him. Whereas Captain Marvel, it's an iframe skill that has iframe ignore, so it makes it much more powerful because you can't hit her unless you have iframe ignore, but she can hit you, so you basically have nowhere to hide. Silver Surfer has it on his 3rd skill, Aura of Radiance. It's right down there at the bottom. He has counterattack and ignore targeting, but of course the ignore targeting and all of those other buffs, most of the other buffs, don't trigger unless he gets hit, and then it becomes a counterattack. So it's sort of like a conditional buff that he gets, More recently, we got both Black Widow and Yelena. Black Widow got it on her snowsuit, specifically on her 4th skill there, Relentless Chain Assault. A lot of skills have 3 names now. I noticed that, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyways, and Yelena has it on her 1st skill, Bazooka Launch. Now, it doesn't say, this one's kind of weird. It doesn't say that it has iframe ignore, but it definitely does. I think her snowsuit does say it. Her snowsuit does say it. Maybe her black suit does not have it. Okay, maybe it's just her snowsuit. But her snowsuit for sure, I can't remember if they both have it. But her snowsuit for sure has it, and it lists it as an ability. So that is the second last character. The last character where it lists iframe ignore. This is important. Listing and unlisting iframe ignore. The last character that lists iframe ignore on is Hulk, only on his endgame uniform. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, but any of these uniforms, if you go to his 3rd skill, box or shuffle, he has ignore targeting. Now, the weird thing about Cyclops in reverse, or Hulk in reverse of Cyclops had iframe ignore and then he lost it. Hulk didn't have iframe ignore and then he gained it. So he basically had 0 iframe ignore through the ages until he got to endgame. Then he suddenly had iframe ignore. Now, with the new Immortal Hulk uniform, he still has iframe ignore, but now it's unlisted. So this one it gets a little bit trickier now. You just have to remember that Hulk has iframe ignore on Gamma Ray Burst, the Thunderclap skill. It's unlisted, completely unlisted, but it's 100% there. Another character that has unlisted iframe ignore is Doctor Strange, and he actually has it on 2 skills. He has it on 1, and I believe he has it on part of 4, Master of the Mystic Arts. So Doctor Strange, you're a cheeky one there. You've been hiding your iframe ignore for a long time, and his is very, very good because you can iframe ignore and then time freeze them, and then they get frozen in their iframe. So it's a really savage counter attack. So those are all the characters that have iframe ignore on their skills 1 to 5. But now you're probably thinking, hold up, Alex. I definitely have ignored other players' iframes with my tier 3 skills and with my awakening skills. Well, that's where things sort of get a little bit less interesting. Basically, almost all, I think Doctor Strange is one of the only ones, but pretty much besides Doctor Strange, every single tier 3 character has iframe ignore on their tier 3 skill. It's unlisted, but it's there. And I'm pretty sure every single character that has an awakened skill, so Medusa, Mystique, Red Guardian, Amadeus Cho, the awakened skill, like a tier 3 skill, also has unlisted iframe ignore. And I think that was basically the dev's idea of making sort of like an ultimate skill that was always going to have some kind of payoff, because it would be really annoying for you to build up to your ultimate skill, press it, and then the boss goes through like a 1-second iframe and you just get interrupted and it's over. And you're like, wow, all that lead up for nothing. It's like buying a bunch of fireworks, setting them up, putting up some safeguards for your family or your house or whatever, and then lighting them, and then they all just fizzle out and you don't get any firework display at all. So yeah, I think that was sort of their plan. Maybe, now that I think about it, maybe Captain America doesn't have iframe ignore on his. I'm not 100% sure. I remember it sort of being a questionable thing. Some people had reported iframe ignore on his ultimate skills. Some people did not report it. I honestly can't remember now. The last time I used Heroic Charge was like 2019 or 2018. Yeah, it's a messy skill to use. It's a tough skill to use. So I actually can't 100% remember, but it's either, yeah, it's definitely Doctor Strange. I'm pretty sure his doesn't have iframe ignore, but I'm not 100% sure about Captain America. So yeah, all awakened characters with their awakening skill and all tier 3s -1 or 2 have iframe ignore on their ultimate skills or their awakened skill, their transcended skill, whatever. But otherwise, those are the characters that have it on their skills 1 to 5. And those skills are much more dangerous and much more powerful because, of course, you can cast them much more frequently, right? It's going to be 20 or 30 seconds in a fight before you can cast a tier 3 or an awakened skill with any of these characters, whereas within 5 seconds of the fight starting, you could get popped off by a Captain Marvel 4th skill, a Yelena Bazooka, or a Hulk Thunderclap on those cheeks. Finally, I want to go back and touch on the characters that I talked about. Shout out to the people on Discord, by the way, who helped me in MFF public chat. The characters that have, again, this is unlisted skills that do not require a target. And actually, big shout out to Cage, because he mentioned it in the Hulk update. He mentioned that Amadeus Cho, he was like, one of the benefits of Amadeus Cho's analysis attack is that it does not require a target. And that's a big one, because especially big for Cho, because it gives him immunity, it gives him a huge buff, and it gives him accumulation. So these skills are important if you're in a pickle. if you're about to take damage, if you're about to get hit, boom, you want to hit those skills, because it's like an emergency button, right? It's like an emergency eject button, emergency defense button, especially when it has effects like immunity, guard hit, etc. So Amadeus chose third skill, does not require a target. Like I said, like we showed, Negasonic's Teenage Warhead's third skill does not require a target to activate the buff. Jean Grey with her old uniform, so this is only actually old uniform, what am I saying? Original Jean Grey. This Jean Grey, Phoenix Jean Grey, with her third skill does not require a target, Bonds of Destiny, but now she does require targets. You're basically never going to see that one again either, unless they do something crazy with the game. Drax, I don't know why I said it in that weird way, but anyways, Drax, his third skill also does not require a target. Cry for Blood does not require a target. And then finally, Storm, the potential, we're waiting on it, we're hoping for it. Storm's third skill also does not require a target, Wind Shear. Oh, last but not least, I almost forgot one, Minerva without the uniform. Her third skill, Full Blast, this buff here, also does not require a target to activate. So those are all the characters that have iframe ignore. Those are the reasons why iframe ignore is so important, and why you should be on the lookout when you're testing characters for the first time, or when you're watching videos when we're going through the APK. Look for iframe ignore skills. Try to figure out if a skill has iframe ignore, because it's hugely powerful for PvP to just be able to interrupt someone mid iframe and do damage to them, potentially kill them, and progress the fight. And who knows, if they ever work on PvP and they make it a much more fun game mode, then all of these iframe ignore characters' value is just going to rise. Those stonks are just going way up. And then on top of the fact that defensively you can prepare yourself, you know this character is iframe ignore, this character blah blah blah, and you sort of build counter attacks for that. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.